Okay, to start off, I've created a folder for my project and put everything that's going to go into the project inside of that folder. And I'm going to save our After Effects file here at the top level. Now I've drawn the pieces for our project using Animate, and I've exported each of these pieces by selecting each piece and right-clicking and choosing Export PNG Sequence. As long as we keep every single piece of our project inside of our master file, we won't have any problems hooking things back up in After Effects. Okay, to get started, I'll open up After Effects and we'll create a new project. After Effects works by importing raw footage into the project window, placing those files into a composition timeline, and then seeing the results up here on our output window. To begin with, I'll click on the project window and import my materials by hitting Command-I. I can either import files individually, or because I've already organized all of my flats into one folder, I'll import the entire folder. All of my flats are imported and organized in the project window. Now I can start building a composition. I'll click on the New Composition button, and I'll use these 1920 by 1080 presets. We now have a composition window down below. We can rename our composition, hitting Enter or Return, and giving it a new name. I'll call this Main, and I'll also drag it outside of this Landscape Flats folder. The first thing I'm going to do in my composition is create a new camera layer. If it's grayed out, I'll need to select the composition window first, select Layer, New, and then Camera. I'll accept these defaults for now and hit OK. By default, you'll receive a warning saying that if you're going to be using a camera, you'll need to set your layers that you want to be affected by the camera or lights to 3D. Our camera object now appears as a layer in our composition. The second thing I'm going to do is add a new Null Object. Layer, New, Null Object. This also appears in the composition window. A null object is a non-rendering empty object that holds position, rotation, and scale data. To parent our camera to the null, we'll grab the little spiral here known as the pick whip and drag it from the camera to the null object. In our parent and link window, it now shows that the camera has a parent of the null1 object. Now that we have a camera rig set up, we can start to compose our scene by adding our landscape flats into our composition. I'll start off with the foreground tree and drag it out into my composition. In order for my tree to interact with the camera properly, I need to convert it to a 3D object. In order to make my tree a 3D object, I'll need to come down here to the lower left-hand corner and make sure that my leftmost layer switches are turned on. This gives me the option to check the box channel for my tree. This makes it into a 3D object. Just to stay organized, I'll keep my camera and null object on top, and I'll place all of my flats down below. Great. Next I'll add my building. It's going to be behind the tree, so I'll place it lower down in the layer stack. This helps us stay organized. In a 2D setup, layers that are lower in the stack will be behind layers on top of the stack. Once we start playing with 3D space, the layer order won't matter nearly as much. I'll go ahead and make this into a 3D object as well. Before we go on, I forgot to make my null object into a 3D object as well, so I'll do that by clicking on the box. We access an object's properties by clicking the arrow next to the object's name. We can adjust a property by clicking and dragging on the property values, or by entering a number with our keyboard. Let's move our building back on the z-axis. maybe to, let's say 800. I'll close my transforms here. Now let's animate a camera pan from left to right. To do this, I'll animate the Null Object. Here's how we set keys in After Effects. When I open up the transform, I want to set position keys. When I want to start setting keys, I click on the stopwatch next to the attribute that I want to key. Once I do this, it turns blue. A blue keyframe is automatically created on the frame that my slider is on. And I have the option over here to add or remove keyframes. Our composition is set to a default length of 30 seconds. That's probably way too long for what we're doing. To change my composition length, I'll go up to Composition, Composition Settings, and set my length down to 5 seconds for now. I'll set a new key to hold the camera, and then to set my second position key here, I can simply move my null object and a key is created for me automatically. I can hit spacebar to preview the animation. If I want to get rid of the hold key, I can just select it here and hit delete. If I want to switch from timecode to frames in my timeline, I hold down Command and click on the readout. Now we're working in frames. If I want to make my pan happen slower, I'll drag my keyframes to the right. And if I want it to happen faster, I'll drag this keyframe to the left. Let's add a few more objects to our scene. I'll add the hill. I'll make it a 3D object. And now I'll move it back in 3D space. I can use the arrow or open up my channels. I'm also going to scale this up. I can do that right here, and because of this chain, I can just do it on one and the other three will follow suit. Let's test our animation. We could again push that hill even farther back. This time I'll use the shortcut for position, which is P, and I'll move it back on the Z-axis. And to scale it up, I can hit S for scale and scale it up. Here we go. I'll make a copy of my tree by selecting it in the composition window, copying and pasting. Command C, Command V. Now I have two. I'll drag it out here. And because I don't want it to just look exactly like our first one, I'll flip it. You can flip it by hitting S for scale and entering -100. Oops. But I only want to do it on X. So since I only want to do it on one dimension, I have to break the chain, turn it off here, and now I can do it separately, -100. And it will flip. I'll also move this back on the Z-axis, P for position, and then I can move it back. Or I could move it forward. Let's see what this looks like. Your animation might play slowly the first time through. This green bar indicates whether or not the scene has been rendered and stored in RAM memory. To make our scene a little spookier, I'll import our video file. Oops, I imported it into the landscape flat, so I'll drag it out of that. Here's our video, ground fog thick. I'm going to lay this on top of the tree, though I'm going to make it a 3D object, so it won't matter. Now, this blocked out our entire scene. In order to make it transparent, I'm going to change the mode from normal to lighten. Let's see how this looks. Again, the first time through, it'll take a moment to render. Ooh, spooky. Notice how the fog is not in front of our foreground tree because it's behind that foreground tree. If I want to lessen the opacity of the ground fog, I can hit T for opacity. Now I can decrease the opacity. You can also experiment with other layer modes. I like that one. Let's leave it there for now and let you get up to some trouble on your own.